Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tribal Council podcast. My name is Ethan Kronk, and I'm joined by my co-host Connor Boudreau. How are you doing tonight, Connor?
You did the intro weird.
No, I didn't.
No, you did.
I forgot a whole part of it. You're right.
Yeah.
On this podcast, Survivor represents your life, and when it is gone, so are we. Now, how are you doing, Connor?
I'm doing great now that you've finished the intro properly. And we've almost finished season 50 of Survivor. It's crazy, folks. Coming down to the nitty gritty here. And oh, wow. What a big episode. First double feature episode for a regular length episode in 12 seasons now? It's crazy.
and what an episode it was. Is that true? Wait, hold on. I'm
For a
challenging you on this because
regular length episode? Yeah, I think it is. Since like
was
38.
okay. Wait, because I'm remembering another episode that I would have thought would have been a regular length episode, but maybe I'm wrong. So let me just check. Let me just consult the Survivor wiki really quick. Assuming episode length is on the Survivor wiki, it is not. Well,
Um,
I mean
and
here.
this is where I insert the screen cap of the Survivor Wiki fun fact that I pulled this from.
Hmm.
So, fun fact, folks. Sometimes I do check the wiki. I am not the all-knowing god of fun facts. I do my research, people.
Need to figure
And
out how long this episode is.
sometimes Survivor Wiki is the research. That's it.
Yeah, well, sometimes Survivor wiki is wrong, and
Yeah.
this is one of those cases because
Wow.
Bob and Weave, the penultimate episode of Survivor 47, where Andy and Genevieve both went home, was a
Oh.
regular length episode.
Oh. Oh no. Well, hey, folks. This is why you fact check your things and you don't just trust the wiki.
I am the all knowing Survivor God. so,
Okay. Shut
so
the fuck up. Good
Connor needs to consult.
lord.
Connor needs to consult the fallible wiki, whereas I, in my infallible wealth of knowledge, I am who he should really be fact checking because I never get anything wrong.
Okay.
Um, so to open this up, we're gonna talk about Rick Devens. To be honest, episode we if there's one thing we can thank Mr. Beast for, it's two more episodes of Rick Devens. Um, Episode 11 was a great Rick episode, despite only getting two confessionals. Or no, yes, the content that he did get was phenomenal. He got a lot more confessionals this episode, and some of the content was pretty good. I mean, it's Rick Devens; it's always gonna be solid. Um, but all in all, he had emotional content. After trying and failing to look for an idol, trying to um, trying his best to win the challenge, but losing to Joe. And then he was kind of just the obvious consensus boot for the most part. I mean, I don't know Tiffany's name. I don't think was even floated that early in the episode. I could be wrong, but um, yeah. What was your
I
opinion on the
mean,
Rick boot?
unfortunately, too many people are like, the theatrics are gonna win him $2 million, and I mean, he won the 2 million for someone. That was always a fact, right? He put that option on the table because Rick Devens was gonna be Rick Devens. He was ready to risk his entire game on a literal 50-50 coin because, haha, insert Mr. Beast twist, you know? And Rick goes, ah, this is meant for me. So he got to do some really cool stuff. He got to correctly identify to use his shot in the dark. I mean, he played a phenomenal game with just one too many situations where he made himself too big of a threat. And unfortunately, this is the end of Rick Devens on Survivor 50. However, I think we could see Rick Devens come back again. I think there's a very real world where we get a third season of Rick Devens because he's had 2 amazing runs in Survivor history.
I certainly would not be at all surprised by another Rick season, but we shall see. Um, Moving on to Suri. This was probably the most devastating elimination of the episode for me. I really wanted to see Suri win. I really thought it was possible, and I was proven wrong. Um, I may know everything about Survivor's past, every single detail, every single fact, 100%, but I don't know the future. I can't tell the future. I can only take my guess. And I was wrong. Suri is not winning this season, clearly. Now, I feel like at this point I do know who's going to win, but we'll get to that. Suri, I'm just shocked, first of all, that Tiffany was potentially going to be a target ahead of Suri. And when Tiffany did win immunity and Suri became the target, that she was very close to being able to turn it around on Aubrey. I think that just goes to show how phenomenal of a player Suri is. Um, I mean, she just had no business making it as far as she did, and she came very close to making it even further. Um, had Ozzy stuck around in the game, I don't know that Suri goes home here. And I really think Suri probably wins if Ozzy hadn't gone home, if Ozzy had played his idol um in episode 11. I can't obviously say that with too much certainty, but I do believe it's very, very likely. Um, and it's just unfortunate to see her go here, but she had a long run. It was awesome to see her on the season, and I'm just glad that she was here in the first place. But yeah, she couldn't quite cut it as per usual.
Yeah, and with Suri, I'm going to start off with a fact-checked fun fact that is insane. Did you know, fans at home, that in Suri's Survivor career, this is the first time through a majority votes where multiple tribe members have voted that Suri has just been outright voted out ever.
Yeah, this is
And
true.
another even crazier, this is a statistical, insane fact. On seasons with a yellow merge, 8-letter name of the tribe, Suri has finished 3 days from the finale, or 3 days from the final day, in 6th place.
Whoa, it's a
Both
conspiracy.
times. 2 out of 2 times that situation's possible, she's happened to finish exactly 6th, 3 days away from the final day. Crazy.
Guys,
Just like how crazy her game was, top to bottom. I mean, we were convinced for weeks if she gets to the end, she wins. And clearly, we were right. Because the second the situation come up where enough people actually realized, holy shit, we've let Suri get too far, they voted her out. It was very clearly made aware to us by Aubrey that, in her opinion, Suri is the greatest player of Survivor history. And, I'm sure this is not the way that Suri wanted to go out, but she will happily ride off into the sunset knowing it took this many damn tries for someone to actually vote her out via majority.
yeah,
Like,
wow.
that's insane.
And I mean, look, I don't necessarily agree that Suri is the best player of all time, but I think she's probably top three. So maybe it's not a crazy thing to say, um, that she could be the best player of all time. A lot of people, I've been seeing some like counter Suri, like Suri's overrated talk on TikTok and whatever, and people are like, oh, she can't win a challenge, therefore she can't be the GOAT. And it's just like, at the end of the day, you don't need to win challenges to win Survivor, right? And you could argue that Suri, if she could win challenges, would be a better player and would have maybe won by now. And I could concur that that's possible, but at the end of the day, when you look at a season like Micronesia, where she makes it to the end and a last minute format change robs her of the win, I'm not saying that you can consider that a win, like on paper in the books, but so far as her quality of a player, as a player is concerned, I do think that you can kind of consider that as valuable as a win. Just as valuable as a win. She absolutely would have won if not for a last minute format change. And that is like, there isn't even an if, right? There isn't even like, oh, in Survivor, um, HVHVH, Devin would have won if there wasn't the Final Four fire making twist right at the end. And, they'd voted out Ben at Final Four, which is a safe thing to assume, but that's still an assumption you have to make. The only assumption you have to make with Suri on Micronesia is that the jury would have voted for her. And based on everything that we've heard, that is a safe assumption. So, again, if you can imagine the world where uh, production doesn't go surprise final two, and you can imagine that as a world that realistically could have existed and the players had every reason to expect that that world would have been the one that they would live in, and that's the world where Suri wins the season without anything extra having to happen, without her having to do anything differently than what she did. As far as her quality as a player is concerned, I think that you can count that to be as valuable as a win. And so I like kind of consider Suri in the ballpark of like one-time winners as far as that is concerned. And then you look at all of her other games, and she's going into all these later seasons with threat levels that are just as big as any one-time winner would be going into them with, and making it and continuing to make it far on two American seasons past that point with this massive target on her back both times, coming close coming relatively close to winning both times. I mean, Game Changer is not as much as on season 50, I think. But season 50, there was a very real path for Sari to win this game. And I don't think you can understate that. Right? So at the end of the day, um, people want to say Sariza overrated. I think that's silly. Oh, she's never won. She basically has. She's done everything that you could reasonably expect to be expected, I guess, from a winner. Like she's played a ostensibly a winning game that somehow did not win her the game because of a last minute format change. And from a, again, as I've said it twice now, I'll say it a third time. From a player quality standpoint, if that's what you're judging, I think you can consider that just as valuable as a win. And I think you need to consider that if you're going to be evaluating Suri as a player. And if Suri was a one-time winner with the resume that she has on her losing seasons, I don't think there would be any question that she's top three. So that's just my 2 cents. Agree or disagree. But that's my take on Suri as an overall player in the history of Survivor, which isn't really what this is supposed to be about. But this might be the last time Suri ever plays, and she just got voted out, so I wanted to talk about that. But do you have anything to say about Suri, Connor?
I mean, to quickly add to that, not only a surprise final two, but one of few instances in Survivor history where production has had to take, in the words of Jeff Probst himself, extenuating circumstance into play to alter the outcome of a season. Right? That is something that was completely out of control of the situation. Two players removed from the game that otherwise wouldn't have been in normal circumstance. Right? It's hard to predict that. It's hard to plan a whole season around it, and it happens. But from a quality player standpoint, most returning players who have the legacy of being a really good one-time player will at best have a second really good season. The occasional one will still do good overall 3 times, but by the fourth time they play, most of them have a dud, right? Look at all the four-time players that exist in Survivor history and tell me that all of them play four top to bottom insane games in Survivor US history. And I think the list starts and ends at Suri, being the only one to dominate games this well, this many times without a complete dud season. Again,
I mean,
only reason she's ever been eliminated reasonably early into a game is because one of the greatest winners ever idles her out. And yeah, she's not like the guaranteed frontrunner in all of her seasons, but she's an insanely high quality player for the majority of every game she plays.
I mean, look at Panama. She wins Panama if she makes it to the end, and Aris wanted to bring her to the end. Micronesia, Parvati and Amanda wanted to bring her to the end, would have lost to her. Um, Heroes versus Villains, can't really say she was much of a contender. She just didn't make it far enough. But she did have a lot of control over the Heroes tribe early on. And then Game Changers, I don't know that anybody was really looking necessarily to bring Suri to the end. I heard that like maybe Andrea or Michaela would have, but they didn't make it as far as Suri even. So she probably doesn't make it to the final three to begin with, but she makes final five if not for Advantage Geddon. And then season 50, Ozzy would have brought Suri to the end. Tiffany probably would have brought Suri to the end. Um, so well, I can't say that with too much certainty about Tiffany, but she was at least willing to protect Suri at this final six vote, which I think is telling. Um, so at the end of the day, like every single season that Suri has played, save for Heroes versus Villains, she's made a final six and had a decent to very, very, very good chance of winning. So maybe you could argue Game Changers, her odds were pretty bleak unless she were to win a challenge or make fire, because I don't think anybody else left in that final five would have been willing to bring her to the end. But that still leaves 3 seasons that you can reasonably say she almost wins or comes really close to winning. That's insane. I don't think anybody else has that. I don't think anybody else has 3 seasons that they almost win, even if you include winning seasons. Right? Boston Rob has two. If you include his winning season, um, obviously Tony and Sandra each have 2 wins. Parvati, if you're including international seasons, but I don't think anybody other than Suri has 3 U.S. seasons where they almost or do win the game.
Not to mention, if we're going across the pond and including Australia, guess what? Who almost won that season, potentially, instead of Parv, if not for another fire making tie loss after a 2-2 vote?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know because I haven't seen Australia versus the world, but like Suri, if she wins fire making, makes a final three. That alone, you have to think that she has a good shot at winning. Now, if you do include across the pond, Parvati has won twice and has had an almost win, so that would add up to 3. But
Yeah, but it would put Suri up to 4. So point still stands.
yeah, I mean Aussie is sitting at 2. Probably, I don't think he comes close to winning any seasons other than Cook Islands and South Pacific. But
Eighth this season's decent. It's pretty good for Aussie. I
eighth,
wouldn't say
but he was never
close
gonna
to
win.
winning. Yeah,
Yeah,
because he was going to always bring Suri, he was never going to win unless like some weird end game happens where somehow he loses Suri at 5 and then gets to the end with like I don't know, Joe and like Emily or Stephanie, but like we'd have to go a long way back and change a lot of things at that point.
Yeah. So, um, personally, I can't think of any other player who's come as close to winning as Suri has, as many times as Suri has. Um, I don't know, maybe Aubrey. Like, I guess, because it depends on how you want to look at game changers for Aubrey. But yeah, I don't know. Not really too many options there. So there's just a lot about Suri that you can look at and point to and include her in the Hall of Fame in on the Mount Rushmore. I think she takes. This is gonna be controversial because the Mount Rushmore pretty unanimously has been Rob, Parvati, Sandra, and Tony. Not as like the top four best players, but the top four like best, most iconic, most important players. Kind of the combination of all three of those factors. And this is going to be extremely controversial. I think Suri takes Boston Rob's spot on that Mount Rushmore. I would prefer to have her take Sandra's, but I do think being the first two-time winner does outweigh Boston Rob in terms of like legacy and importance to the show, regardless of if I think that Sandra's not even an amazing player to begin with. But I do think Suri has cemented herself as a Mount Rushmore player. And if I had to kick anybody out of that Mount Rushmore at this point, it's probably going to be Boston Rob. So that's probably a hot take. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that, but that's my view.
And you know what? I'll give my quick 2 cents and say you had me until you said Rob over Sandra, because I'll be the one who says it. You had to specify first two-time winner. It's no longer something that's that unique to her, and someone did it better and better. So I'm gonna say two-time winner or not. If I had to pick my Mount Rushmore today, tomorrow, and every day that comes in between, it's going to be Tony. It's going to be Boston Rob. Harv has to be on there. And you know what? I put Suri in that fourth spot.
Well, that's just your opinion. I respect it. What I don't understand is what day could possibly exist between today and tomorrow. But you know, maybe you know something that I don't. Um, moving on and talking about Joe Hunter. That's right. For the first time in this podcast's history, Joe is below Tiffany. I'm not gonna say this was a terrible episode for Joe. Really, it wasn't a good one. I don't think it was kind of just a whatever Joe episode. This was a great episode for Tiffany. I mean, she still gets less confessionals somehow than anyone else, but she's propped up as this massive threat that needs to be taken out. She could win this season if she makes it to the end. That sort of talk is telling me that she's not going to make it to the end, but if nothing else, it has to increase her odds. And I just, at this point, Joe is drawing so dead, I cannot muster a single positive thing to say about Joe's edit. Whereas Tiffany has this now, and at this point, that's enough for Tiffany to overtake Joe. Um, but do you have anything to say about Joe before we kind of briefly touch on Tiffany, I guess?
Absolutely. You know me, I always got to have some fun facts when it comes to players that we don't got shit all to talk about. And uh, all of my Survivor fun facts are running a little low because, well, there's only so many people left. There's only so much you could talk about. But Joe does do something that has never been done before in American Survivor history. And I did also fact check this. He becomes the first American Survivor player to win 2 challenges on multiple seasons. And by that, to clarify, he wins the A Bit Tipsy Challenge in both 48 and 50, and the Wrist Assured Challenge in both 48 and 50. No other player has won the same two individual challenges twice. So, my fun fact does not conclude there. It goes far into an opinion, and as far as that opinion is concerned, I'm going to say this. Maybe you'll push back, maybe you'll agree. Joe Hunter is, in the new era, the greatest top to bottom comp beast, bar maybe one person is in the conversation to begin with. But I think the conversation, as far as I'm concerned, starts and ends with Joe Hunter.
So I'm going to say this: two players from Survivor 47. Rachel, 4 individual immunity wins on her original season, hasn't had an opportunity to play again. I think she could easily prove herself to be a bigger challenge threat than Jonathan if she were to be brought back. But you also have Kyle, who I believe only didn't lose a single challenge except for, didn't lose a single individual challenge until the episode where he was voted out.
And
And
comes second in that challenge, yes.
and comes in second in that challenge. I mean, we don't know what he would have done had he not been voted out early, but just in terms of track record, when you look at the percentage, which at the end of the day is technically more important. Like, in an objective sense, percentage is more important to somebody's challenge threat level than the raw number of how many they've won. Because competing in a challenge inherently does not make you a threat, right? So, I'm gonna say that Kyle very easily could be the biggest challenge threat in the new era, and if he were to be brought back, he could have an opportunity to prove that. I don't think he probably will be, so kind of tough, but Joe just was not a massive challenge beast even on his original season. Like, he won a decent amount of challenges for sure, and he's winning a decent amount of challenges this season for sure. He has a lot of consistency, and he's played twice. That makes it very easy to see him as a phenomenal challenge player. But at the end of the day, he's not dominating either of his seasons challenge wise. Whereas Kyle, for the time that he was on season 47, dominated the challenges on season 47. And then after he got voted out, Rachel dominated the challenges on season 47. So I do think one of those two players could be better than Joe. I just don't know if either of them will have the opportunity to necessarily prove it. We'll see. Maybe Rachel. I think Rachel could be brought back, but that is my pushback on that.
And
But
you know what? I think it's a fair opinion. I think you bring up a good point that two people kind of run the table in that season, and if brought back, I feel like they'd present a good opportunity to maybe prove me wrong. I mean, Joe has 7 individual immunity wins, and I believe 9 individual challenge wins in a non-tribe format, so it's a high bar, but I think you named 2 great players that could absolutely upset that number if they get a second chance.
yeah, I mean, if Rachel were to come back and win another 4, I mean, assuming Joe doesn't win any more this season, which would be a bold assumption, but um, uh, Savannah as well. I mean, she didn't really get an opportunity to prove herself despite being brought back because she did not make the merge, but she was a phenomenal challenge competitor on season 47, or on season 49 is what I meant to say there. um, Probably not as good as Rachel, I'll say, because from Rachel's standpoint, like, she started winning challenges after Kyle was voted out. She was arguably going against the biggest challenge threat in the new era for like a solid chunk of for like pretty much the first half of the merge. And if he wasn't there, I do believe she probably would have won at least one other challenge. And broke the female challenge record. I can't say that for sure, but I feel like the evidence is there to say that she would have had a very good chance. Had Kyle not been there. So, at the end of the day, though, Joe is a fantastic challenge competitor, and that is the only compliment on his game that I will be providing for this season. Now to Tiffany. What's your big fun fact about Tiffany, Connor?
Well, you see,
He has one.
for this episode, I ain't got one.
Dang. Well,
So,
already kind of talked about Tiffany in Joe's segment, to be honest.
yeah, and we kind of explored some of the more important parts of it, which was the edit has screamed in our face out of nowhere, halfway through an episode. Oh, hey, by the way, Tiffany's gonna win if she gets the end, maybe.
Yeah, she's
What?
20. She has 26 confessionals, by the way.
Yeah, and for like half the season was purpled completely. What is this? What is this garbage that they're feeding us now with, oh, hey, by the way, she's a legitimate threat? Yeah, how about you fill us in on episodes 1 through 5 on this agenda that might exist to be a very suddenly important metric for the final 2 episodes?
Yeah. Um, I don't know. The fact that she has the same amount of confessionals right now as Stephanie, and we're supposed to like accept that she's this massive threat. Like, I accept it. I'm sure it's true. But like, why is she being edited in this way if that's true? Why not under edit Joe, who's probably coming in third place? I don't know. Or not under edit anyone. It's not necessary. We don't need to. Certainly not anybody who's making it to the finale. Like, come on. That annoys me. That bugs me. I don't like when they do that, but it is what it is, I guess.
I'd say another one that, like, Genevieve was voted out during the Blood Moon and has 5 less confessionals. You take away the 4 that Tiffany gets this episode, 1 more confessionals. Going into episode 11, all of the sudden, this grand threat had 1 more confessional than someone who was booted at the midpoint of the season.
Yeah. That is rough. I mean, I just don't know. I don't know what to say. Tiffany, I'm so sorry. You deserve better than this. But
And, like,
this is what you got.
insanely better than this. This is blasphemous. Tiffany's
It's disrespectful,
very entertaining.
quite frankly.
Oh yeah.
I'll be
No.
the first to say it.
And, like, you know, we can't change the past. We can't change what they've given us. But what we can do is tell people that, you know, they did Tiffany some fucking absolute pile of crap for the episode's edit constantly, episode after episode after episode. And just know that we've been appreciating what we've actually gotten for like the last like couple episodes a lot.
Now watch her get 20 confessionals next episode.
I would lose my mind.
And
if
still
she
have
gets
and
the
still have less
season high.
and still have less than Jonathan.
Not only that, like,
By the way, and Jonathan, if Jonathan ends the season with the most confessionals of the season, I will be upset. I will be very upset. I'll have a bone to
for him
pick
to end
with.
up with the most of the season would be difficult, considering right now that's a title held by exactly evenly Christian and Ozzy, if I'm not mistaken, at 63. But
Sure. I mean, yeah, he would need 16, I guess. So that's probably not likely. Luckily for us, I did not see the 63s. I saw the 52s and went, that is very beatable for Jonathan.
yeah,
But yeah, okay. Hey, Christian at 11th place though, being tied for the most of the season, is a little bit ridiculous. I'm not going to complain as a massive Christian fan. I see a lot of people who do complain about it, though, and I kind of get it when you have someone like Tiffany who has 26 confessionals.
Yeah, I mean
26.
the one that really blows it out the water is the 18 in his exit episode is fucking bonkers. You know?
Yeah. But, again, I'm not complaining. I'm a huge Christian fan.
Oh, neither
Uh,
am I. I just it's insane and I love it.
moving on to Jonathan. Sorry, my phone was not on silent. Moving on to Jonathan, the guy who is probably coming in second place. We'll talk about that. Um, you know, big thing with Jonathan, I don't feel like he really got enough credit for Suri going home to justify saying that he had a good edit. Given that was something very early on that he said you need to take out Suri when you get the chance. He was given multiple opportunities, never took one. This time, he first wants to target Tiffany, and then needs to be, and then once Tiffany is once Tiffany wins immunity, suddenly, Jonathan is targeting Suri, but even then, he seems to flirt with the idea of voting out Aubrey instead, and it's just not a great look for him. Um, I don't know. I just don't see it for Jonathan. I have him in my top three, but a final five that doesn't mean much, you know. And at this point, he's probably the person left who I like the least. Um, yeah, definitely. So, I'm a big old Jonathan hater. But do you have a different perspective on Jonathan, Connor?
I mean, the thing for me with Jonathan is the following. Uh his edit has also been entirely driven by, hey, by the way, you barely existed before the merge happened. Oh wait, the merge happened. Ah, we got to give you all these confessionals now, and it's annoying. It really is. And obviously not as bad as Tiffany, and I would say I'm not, you know, particularly moved by Jonathan 24/7. However, it's been fun to see a bit of a variance from Jonathan's character and him actually trying to play a strategic game to success or not. It's still something that is more fun to see on my screen than, you know, I guess a lack of confessionals from like 10 different players and it not being spread out well. I think that's something that I'm going to point out that we could take away from the 24 player format is that because of just the amount of episode length, not really being enough for that many players early on, and then only being 13 episodes, basically having only 2 double feature episodes. It's basically 15 episodes worth. It doesn't give enough confessionals to go around for everyone, and yet Jonathan has one of the highest numbers of the season, and I'm complaining about it for him, and I'm not even like his biggest fan. So, CBS, do more episodes if you're going to do 24 people. And if you can't find the time to make more episodes a thing, I don't know what to tell you. It's people are going to be under edited and people are going to complain about it. That's the end result that I'm noticing here.
Maybe cut back on the number of contestants at that point, if I'm being honest. Like, I
What?
mean,
No way.
yeah, I don't know. If you can't make a 24 player season work and like edit everybody in a satisfying way, it might be better to just do 21 players. I don't know. Still be the most ever, but
Yeah, I mean you beat it by one, but hey, it would beat it.
you cut out Jonathan, you can cut out Chrissy, you can cut out Stephanie. Mwah.
Bam.
Bam.
Yeah.
Perfect season. Season's fixed. Um,
Well,
moving on to
I
Rich.
don't know
Well,
what
actually,
to say.
sorry. I'll give you the honors. I almost did this for you on your last possible opportunity to do it. Oh God.
I mean, hey, if CBS is watching and any opinions are taken into consideration, the man, the myth, the legend, RIZ, Riz God Baby will be back because, as we are showing you here, number 2 on the rankings. You know, applause all around. But that doesn't necessarily mean we think he's going to be second place or winning the season necessarily. And it's unfortunate. But we'll get into this. What is important is the fact that, again, Rizzo justifies targeting out one of his allies. He gets large amount of confessionals, some good numbers on the board if you're just looking at the raw stats. They look great. If you're looking at depth at the decision making and at the result of what happened, it's 2 rounds of, hey, this is kind of what Rizzo said that he wanted to do. Great. He also gets brought on a reward, even though some people were upset about it, but shows a relationship that he didn't really necessarily have with Joe. Maybe this will come back into play later. He's actually shown being involved in a challenge in a fashion in which he's actually kind of in it. That's new. And again, overall, top to bottom, Rizzo needs to come back. I don't care what anyone says.
I also think, like, I'm gonna be honest, this is like a single horse race at this point. I really just would be shocked by any winner other than Aubrey. But I mean, Rizzo has some pretty significant flaws in his edit. Uh, People have talked about him as a potential final travel goat, somebody who probably isn't going to have the respect of the jury. And a lot of people have Jonathan above Rizzo on their rankings, and I can see it. I have more subtle, but in my opinion, more profound flaws with Jonathan's edit, particularly as it pertains to his handling of Suri throughout the season. But plus, I think there's more positives for Rizzo, especially in recent episodes. But at the end of the day, Tiffany and Joe are very close. Jonathan and Rizzo, for me, are very close. None of them are anywhere near Aubrey, which feels weird to say at this point. If you told me 2 episodes ago that I would have was going to say that Aubrey was not only above Rizzo, but like leagues above him, like easily way more likely to win than him, I would have thought that you were a little bit crazy, because Aubrey's edit hasn't been the most consistently amazing throughout the season, especially not early on. But these last few episodes have just been like hammering us in the head with the fact that Aubrey is probably going to win. And with Suri gone, there's just no competition. Especially as Rizzo gets, honestly, not a great episode at all this time around. Um, it's just left nothing else. Um, but I guess that kind of segues into Aubrey, and I've already sort of talked about this. I think she's gonna win. She, we get the flashbacks to go wrong. Her talking about how she wants to make her big moves near the end, like Michelle did, and then we see her follow through on that with Ozzy. Big move to take out Ozzy. She's given full credit for it. Mind you, he kind of did it to himself, to be fair. But still, great look for Ozzy, or great look for Aubrey. Rick goes, that's great. Tiffany wins immunity. First person to say Suri needs to go, Aubrey. Aubrey is given so much credit in the edit for Suri going home that it's insane. Despite the fact that it very well was probably a pretty consensus opinion that Serena had to go, the edit really portrays it as Aubrey's move. Aubrey's big move right before the finale, which is exactly what she said she wanted to do multiple episodes ago. If Aubrey isn't winning the season, I don't know what to tell you, because this episode just completely set in stone that she is the front runner, and it is not even particularly close. But do you disagree, Connor? Do you think that it's a tight race?
Um, I can't think of some kind of witty way to put this off the top of my head, so I'm just gonna go with yeah, no. Uh, this is kind of, I think, the redemption arc that Aubrey always wanted when she agreed to come back for Edge of Extinction and Game Changers, where she could play the game that she wanted to play a little differently, adapt things, and adjust. And I think it's pretty impressive that we're going to get this weird rinse and repeat cycle where for the second time in Survivor history, a player is going to appear in 4 seasons over an 18-season span and win on their fourth season if Aubrey wins this season today. Or I guess tomorrow, today, depending on who's watching, where you're watching, and how you're watching it. But
I mean, it's not gonna. Yeah, well, we'll see.
you
It'll be
know,
today
it'll be
for anybody
today.
watching this.
IRL in real life. We're recording this pretty late,
Yeah.
so it is Wednesday, folks. Oh no. But more importantly, it would be a weird coincidence, only so weird that it'll happen exactly twice in Survivor history, probably, and ironically, with one of the greats and another potential future great in the making when
Okay,
we look back on the grand
but
scheme of things.
but if you think about it, Rizzo just needs to lose one more season and then win Survivor 6-7, and he can join this club.
Oh, okay. Uh, you know,
Am I wrong?
sure. Or hear me out. We could just have him come back twice, faster than 18 seasons. I guess twice more faster than 18 total seasons, and then he's better than Boston Rob and Aubrey.
Nah.
Thoughts?
I think that the only appropriate person who could win Survivor 6-7 is Rizzo, is the RZGOD Riz God baby.
Yeah, but what if that's his fifth season?
Well then, but he has to win it. I mean, if you're saying that he's going to be a two-time winner in the time span that
Yeah.
Rob became a one-time winner, then that's a crazy world to think of. But
Hey, I'm always thinking of worlds where the RZGOD Riz God baby can be the greatest Survivor player ever in the greatest fashion possible. And I feel like that is the
I mean,
coolest world we could live in, you know, 18 seasons from now. But that isn't now. What is now is the fact that the only pre-game changes player to come back for every subsequent season is more than likely finally getting the win that they have fought a hell of a long time for.
yeah, which and it's going to be not a great winning game or edit if I'm being completely honest, but oh well. At least Aubrey's finally winning.
Hey, a win's a win, and you fucking take it. That's the way that I look at it. She won't care how good that edit is. She'll be happy that she has that $1 million check in her hands in the middle of a live audience.
Yeah, well, you
Something
ask
that you will never be able to take away from her, assuming we get that live audience for the rest of time.
I mean, you ask Aubrey how she feels about her edit. I feel like she probably cares at least a little bit.
Sure, but the $1 million check you can't take away from her. The moment you can't take away from her. Right?
True. This is
The
true.
win will never leave. The edit, it's whatever. Through the history of time, it'll wash away as, bad production decisions. Right? Big CBS. Maybe not editing it well. But what you can't take away is the fact that she outwit, outlast, and outplayed 23 other individuals for 26 days. And after a big old trip home back to LA, she'll have won.
Truth. This is true. Now before we wrap things up, finale predictions. Me and Connor both have our full predictions for immunity winners, fire making competitors, boot order, final tribal council, who the jury votes for, who wins. So I will go first. I have Joe winning final five immunity and Tiffany going home. I'll say in a unanimous vote. Then I have Joe winning final four immunity. This is the part that I'm least confident on. I think that he brings Jonathan and Aubrey beats Rizzo in fire making. I'm very confident in Rizzo going home in fire making. How it happens, I'm not nearly as confident on. but that is my current prediction. Then Aubrey wins the game in a situation where Jonathan receives Stephanie, Coach, and Chrissy's votes, and Aubrey receives Rizzo's, Tiffany's, Cerie's, Rick's, Ozzy's, Emily's, Christian's, and Dee's. That is my prediction. Joe does not receive a vote. He comes in third, Jonathan second, and Aubrey wins.
And a slightly different outcome. My guess, Final 5 immunity. Joe wins. Tiffany goes out via unanimous decision. Final 4, Aubrey wins immunity. Chooses to take to the end of the game Joe, leaving Jonathan and Rizzo, 2 former Fire losers, to duke it out and see which one becomes the first American Survivor player to lose twice in Fire, where I predict it to be Rizzo. So far, same outcome, different paths to get there, and I have a different final tribal outcome, because where you saw only 3 votes going Jonathan's way, I'm actually going to predict a 4th in form of Ozzy. I think Ozzy will choose to go for Jonathan over Aubrey, leaving us with a 7-4 instead of an 8-3. Outcome still the same. Aubrey via majority decision by a bit of a landslide, with Joe unfortunately not receiving a vote and becoming a multi-time runner-up.
So if you look at our predictions, Joe winning the Final 5 immunity, Tiffany going home unanimously, and
in some way Rizzo losing Fire.
Rizzo in some way loses Fire, Aubrey wins where Joe receives 0 votes. All of those things are consistent between our predictions. It's just a matter of how does Rizzo lose Fire making? What events lead to that? And does Ozzy vote for Jonathan or Aubrey? I say that he votes for Aubrey because in Survivor history, when you have tight alliances, they tend to vote together even on the jury. I think that Ozzy would be swayed by Cirie, probably not by Rizzo at this point, but by Cirie to vote for Aubrey. I do think Ozzy does have clearly a salty side to him, and he could see Aubrey as part of the reason why he was eliminated and choose to vote for Jonathan because of that. I don't really see the honor and integrity connection or old school way of playing connection. I don't actually think that Ozzy's going to care all that much. If that's your reasoning. But if your reasoning is simply that Ozzy is salty, I definitely get where you're coming from. I just simply think that at the end of the day, he will probably be convinced by Cirie at Ponderosa to vote for Aubrey, and that's why I have him voting for Aubrey. But
you know what? I gave 2 main factors as to why I thought my decision would be that he'd vote for Jonathan. My main thought was, okay, he's gonna want to vote for someone who A was physically competitive, but just overall just like a challenge threat. And as much as Joe has been winning a ton, his resume also doesn't leave much to be desired. So when you look at it, who was someone who didn't blindside him completely, didn't completely throw him under the bus to make him salty in that regard? Aubrey flipped it on him. Jonathan was just a vote, right? So Jonathan didn't completely turn the tables on him and cause his own elimination, whereas it's really, in reality, Ozzy's own fault. But I see Ozzy getting, a little stuck in his head about the fact that, Aubrey's the reason I'm here. It's Aubrey's fault. It's Aubrey's fault. Oh, and the Jonathan guy, he played a pretty good game, I guess. He won some comps. That's cool. I'm going to vote for him. So it's a mix of Jonathan just being solid in competitions and having won a couple immunities, and just Aubrey being, quote-unquote, the cause of Ozzy's last real chance at the million and at the title. Well, I guess 2 million in this case.
yeah. Thank you, Rick Devens. Thank you, Mr. Beast.
That's a sentence I didn't think I'd ever hear you say.
But yeah, And I could see it going either way. So it'll be interesting. We'll see in our finale episode for season 50. We'll talk about whose prediction was more correct. And I think this is something I want to do every penultimate episode is full prediction for the finale. We'll do it for season 51 at the end of the year, basically. But with that being said, the finale is up next. We will have a lot to talk about. Really hope that we can get Jessica for that episode. She unfortunately hasn't even watched the most recent episode yet, so so obviously she couldn't do the podcast, but she has school and other important factors. She's busier than either me or Connor. But she will watch